What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got another swatch review for you. So today we're talking about the ILNP Real Magic toppers. Before we get into it, I do want to note this is not a new collection. I believe it originally came out in 2017, but a few of you guys actually asked me to do a swatch video of these, and as soon as I saw them on the ILNP website, I absolutely fell in love and I knew I wanted to try them. So that's what I'm doing today. If you haven't heard of ILNP before, they are an independent nail polish brand that is based out of the US. They are 7 free, meaning they are free of 7 of the potentially harmful ingredients that are often found in nail polish, and they are cruelty free, meaning they do not test their products on animals. They do say on their website that they are striving to be vegan, meaning not using any animal derived ingredients, but they aren't specifically labeled as vegan, so just something to keep in mind. I'll link that information down in the description for anybody who is curious to see their statement. So the Real Magic Toppers collection is a set of 10 iridescent flaky toppers, but these are actually very different from any of the iridescent flaky toppers I've seen before. This is very similar to a shimmer. We don't have those larger flake shards. It's these super teeny tiny irregular flakies, and like I said, they just look like shimmer on the nail, so it almost creates this iridescent shimmer over whatever color. And if you guys aren't familiar with iridescence, basically it just means that the little glitters are translucent, so they reflect light, but it actually looks kind of different depending on if you're wearing it over a lighter color or a darker color, so they're super transformative. And I feel like my biggest difficulty with doing transformative toppers in a video is what colors to wear it over. So I am showing you guys each color over a few different options. So I'm showing over white and then over black. You can honestly wear them over any color, and you can even layer them on top of each other to create multi-dimensional iridescent flakies. I feel like honestly this video could be hours long if I showed you over more colors than just the black and white, but I figured that was a good start because you can see it over a light color, you can see it over a dark color. But actually, maybe in my next live stream, I will show you guys some more combos. I don't know. For those of you guys who don't know, I do Twitch live streams every Friday where I just do some nail art or try out nail combinations. So I'll link that down in the description if anybody wants to join those. But yeah, I feel like this is an extremely long intro, so let's just dive right into the swatches and roll the footage. So we're just gonna dive right into it. This first shade is called Scarlet. I'm gonna show you over black first and then I'll show you over white, but this one is a red-based iridescent shimmery flaky topper. So looking at it head on, you definitely see a lot of that very intense red shimmer in there, but it actually has a little bit of a duochrome feature to it. So it shifts into gold and even green at certain angles. So if you're looking at your nails at a different angle, you'll definitely see a little bit more of that green, but sometimes they kind of pop up at different angles when you're painting them on. So I'm also showing you all of the swatches over white, and I know it's very difficult to see on camera. It looks a little bit more intense in real life. I ended up doing 2 coats so that it looked as opaque on camera as it looked in real life, because it's really hard to show iridescent flakies over white. So I'm just going to show you guys this super extreme close-up of each color so you can kind of see what's going on. It has this very glassy, sheer kind of coloring to it when it's over white, but you can still see a little bit of that red when it hits the light. Moving on to the next color, this one is called The Alchemist, and this one is a little bit more of an orangey red flaky in there, and then again it has that duochrome shift, so you can actually see directly on. There's a little bit of a flakiness that looks sort of yellowish gold in there, and then again at extreme angles it looks a little bit more greenish. So I'm trying to go in rainbow order based on how it looks over black, but it's a little difficult. Some of them have some similarities. Of course, I am going to be doing my little comparison at the end, so you'll be able to see all of the differences over both black and over white, but just so you guys know, we're kind of going in a little bit of an order here. So here I am painting this one over white, and again, very subtle, and you can see it has that sort of glassy coloring to it, and it almost looks like cool toned unless it's hitting the light. So that's something you're going to see a lot of these over white look very similar. It just depends on what they look like when the light catches it, which is very hard to capture on camera. Next up we have the shade Limitless, and this one's pretty exciting because it looks like it's a mix of 2 different types of iridescent flaky shimmers in here. So we have some that look pink when you're looking directly into them, and then we have some that have a sort of orangey yellow that shifts into green. So looking at it head on, you can actually see sort of a mix of pink and green together. And then as you shift your nail around, it starts to look a little bit more green and then even into blue at certain angles. This is where I thought it started to look really cool over white, because for some reason this mix of iridescent flakies has a sort of purpley, bluish, pinky kind of coloring to it. So it kind of looks like a little unicorn coloring situation going on. So I thought this one was actually really fun. But again, I feel like it's just really hard to showcase how it looks because the angle that I film at, it's hard to see what it looks like when the light is hitting it. And then also it's a little too bright so you can't see the exact color, but I'm trying to give you my best impression of what it looks like. Next up, we have this shade Head Start, and this one is another one that looks like it's an interesting mix of iridescent colors in here. So the main color over black is green, but then you also see a little bit of like a golden flake in there as well, and some pieces that look pink and even red. And then again, at those extreme angles, you get that bluish color as well. So I know there's a lot of similarities of these, but once you see them all together, you're gonna realize just how different they look. And again, I thought this one looked really cool. Over white, it had that same sort of quality where it looked like that pinky purpley kind of coloring, but then you still got some green showing through when the light hit it. So it was just a really pretty one. I think all of these do look pretty over white. It's a lot more subtle of a color and it's definitely hard to capture on camera, but I do think in real life it has a little bit of an opalescent vibe. Next up, we have the shade Renegade, and this one is actually pretty similar to Head Start. Looking at it head on, it also looks like a vibrant, mostly green shimmer in there, but whereas Head Start had a little bit more of a golden flaky running throughout, this one has a little bit of a cooler, almost blue tone, and then at the extreme angles, it actually looks pink. So instead of getting the blue, you get the pink on this color. So this one actually looked pretty different over the white. You can see this one definitely leans a little bit more pinky toned than that purple slash bluey kind of colors that we saw in the last two shades. So similar, but a little bit different. Moving on, the next shade is called Mile High, and I think this one was actually my favorite of the bunch just because I think it was the most unique mix of iridescence in here. So it's actually really interesting. In the bottle, it almost looks like it's a pearly color, but once I painted it on over black, I could see there was this very strong duochrome that shifted between a very warm, almost fuchsia-y kind of purple, and then this very soft greenish color. So it had both colors going on at all angles, which I thought was a really cool effect. And then I thought it also looked pretty decent over white. Again, very subtle as they all tend to be, but that is just what happens when you use iridescent polishes over lighter colors. This one definitely gave a little bit more of that pearly coloring, so it almost looked a little bit silvery over white. So I thought that was a really interesting little twist. The next shade I have is called Raven, and this one is another one that looks like it's a mix of a couple of different iridescent colors. So we have some dominant blue flakies, and then we have some dominant green flakies when you're looking at it head on. And then at the angles, you can see a lot more blue and even into like a purpley pink at very extreme angles. So this one over white is where I started to notice the yellowy kind of tones coming out. And that's something that I see a lot with iridescent flakes that lean blue. When they're paired over lighter colors or white, they tend to look a little yellow. So you're going to see that very strongly in the next color, but you can see it a little bit in here as well, that sort of yellowy pink in there. The next shade is called Abyss, and this one is a very intense cobalt blue flaky shimmer, and then it actually has a little bit of an orangey coloring at the more extreme angles. So this one is a very intense color. It looks super awesome over black. It also would definitely look gorgeous over other deep colors, especially cooler toned colors. I think would really look gorgeous, but with a really intense blue iridescence like this, it is going to look very yellow over white. So this was definitely my least favorite over white, and you can see it honestly even looked like, I don't know, like it looked like popcorn color on my nails. I think in general, I just don't love these blue iridescent flakies over white. I think they really kind of make it look a little dirty, but you can see when the light hits it that it has that very intense blue. It's just that that yellow is the dominant kind of color here. Next up, we have the shade Moonstone, which is another multifaceted one, and actually looking at it now, this one might be my favorite of the collection. I'm not sure. There's a lot of really pretty ones here, but this one looks like it's a mix of a few different colors. So when you're looking at it head on, you get a few different dominant iridescent colors coming through. So you get a very intense pink, you you get a little bit of purple and you get a little bit of blue. And then looking at it at the more extreme angles, it looks a little bit more pink dominant and then into a sort of green color at the more extreme angles. So again, with that blue iridescent flaky, you're gonna get a lot of that yellowing when you wear it over white. There's just something about the opposite color being shown through that makes it look very yellow. So definitely not a huge fan of how this one looks over white, but some people might like this color. So it's really just up to personal preference here. And the final shade in the collection is called Free Spirit, and this one is a really beautiful, strongly fuchsia with a little bit of purple in it, iridescent flaky. And again, we have at these more extreme angles, you get this sort of orangey gold that goes into green. So it's really fun to wear. It's definitely fun to like move your hand around and just see all of the different colors that come through on these polishes when the light hits them or at different angles. It's just very transformative. And this one I actually thought looked really cool over white. It ended up giving a little bit of this greenish blue hue. So you can see that it almost looks like this like green speckling across the white nail. So I thought that was actually really cool. And again, once the light hits it, you can see a lot more of that pinky coloring, but almost impossible to show on camera. So you're just gonna have to trust me. So of course, while I was swatching, I did want to play around with a couple of combinations. Since these are super thin toppers, you can definitely layer a few of them over each other. And I was just curious to see what they would look like. Honestly, I could experiment for hours. And this is all just over black, but you could experiment even more by wearing it over other base colors or even doing jelly sandwiches. I mean, the possibilities are endless here. But I thought this combo was really cool, Alchemist and Mile High. It kind of gives this mix of pinky, purple, red, and green. I also decided to try the combination of Limitless and Free Spirit, and this one was giving me Mardi Gras vibes. I feel like we got all the Mardi Gras colors in there. Honestly, at this point, I was just randomly choosing. I didn't really think about color combinations, but I feel like if I did more colors that kind of complemented each other, especially over a similar color base, I think that would be really fun. But there's just something about these opposing colors that feels really fun as well. So speaking of opposing colors, I thought it would be really cool to mix Head Start and Scarlet because these are opposite colors. So Head Start has that strong green and then Scarlet of course has that strong red. And I wanted to see if it looked pretty Christmassy, which I think it actually does. And I thought that was super fun, but I wanted to take it a step further because I feel like you could definitely layer more than one over each other here. So I thought I would do a little RGB situation, some red, green, blue. So I added that very strongly blue shade Abyss over it just out of curiosity. I knew it was probably going to be a strange combination, but I was just so curious. And looking at it, it's just so wild to think that this is just over a black polish. It looks like I'm wearing multiple different colors mixed together. And I just think it's really impressive that the topper was able to achieve that. And then my final combination was a little bit more safe. I decided to pair the shade Renegade with Abyss. So we have some nice blue-green vibes here. I was wondering if it would give me a sort of oceanic look, but I feel like it kind of gives me earth vibes. So I thought that was fun. So here are all of the shades together. I feel like it's a little bit harder to tell in this zoomed out view. So I also did a zoomed in view so you could see what the colors actually look like and just sort of the depth of those flakies, which I thought was really interesting. It's kind of funny. As I was applying these, I felt like they all looked very similar on my nails, but once I saw all of them compared next to each other, I was like, oh no, they're all pretty different. Even the ones that have similar color schemes like Abyss and Moonstone just look pretty different on. I feel like I should give you guys a little bit of warning that the white comparison at first glance looks like I just have white on my nails. So here it is. I know that it looks a little intense. You might want to pause and zoom in or take a screenshot and zoom in because I know that it's really hard to discern what's going on here, but I figured since I swatched them all over white, I just wanted you guys to be able to see the comparison and how some of the shades kind of give off a purpley or pinky vibe. Some of them look yellowish, some of them look greenish or bluish, just based on what that iridescent color is. So if you are interested in wearing it over lighter colors, hopefully this comparison chart is helpful to you. But I know they do look fairly similar and it's also a very subtle effect. So those are the polishes, and I have to say, I think they're really beautiful. I absolutely loved each color. I feel like there were so many different varieties of color, and there were actually some combinations of iridescent color that I hadn't seen before. Even even though I feel like there are a lot of flaky toppers out there in the world. So I was really impressed with that. I think that there's a nice amount of flaky shimmer in there, so it never feels sparse on the nails. The formula is overall really good. I loved the color selection. And I also just in general love ILNP's kind of boutique feel. They have those soft touch caps that I think feel so special, and it just makes the polish feel a little fancier and more expensive. And they also do have a wide flat brush, but it's actually not too wide. It's sort of what I like to call a medium wide brush. So for people who don't like a wide flat brush, I think this is actually a really great kind of middle ground. But yeah, overall, I was really into this collection. I loved all of them. And I am actually really curious to try layering them on top of each other. I feel like you can definitely layer a few on top of each other without it feeling like a very thick manicure. So all of these polishes are available on the ILNP website. They come in 12 milliliter bottles and they retail for $12.50 USD each. You can also get on their website a full set of all 10 toppers, and that retails for $100 USD. So I'll link both of them down below. But yeah, I'm actually really curious what you guys think of this. I know it's not a new collection and a lot of you might even have these already, but I actually didn't start getting into ILNP until fairly recently, so I'm very excited to be kind of going back and seeing some of their previous collections. And like I said, I was just really impressed with these. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think, if you own any of them, if you've never heard of them before, and if you're intrigued by the swatches. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear them, so leave them in the comments. If you enjoy my swatch and review videos, please give this one a thumbs up. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I put out new videos every Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Huge shout out to my Cosmic Admirals on Patreon, Amanda M, Braxton Scott, and Rocket Man's daughter. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye. Today's fun fact question comes from Patreon supporter Caroline, and Caroline wants to know, what are some newer goals you've made in life or for your channel recently? I actually do have a couple of fairly new goals and things that I hadn't really thought about in the past, but I think they're pretty important and I don't know why I haven't prioritized them. One of my main goals this year is to have better posture. I slouch so much. I feel like whenever I'm sitting, I'm slouching. I'm actually slouching right now. If I was sitting up straight, I would be up here. But for the sake of framing, I'm gonna continue slouching for this video. But yeah, no, I have a huge slouching problem. I slouch when I'm standing, I slouch when I'm sitting, and I just really think that I need better posture. So despite me slouching right now, I am working on my posture. So far this year, I've been pretty good about it, you know, just trying to be very mindful when I'm sitting down or when I'm standing up, just that I'm not like hunched over, and trying my best to stand up straight because I know it's good for you to have good posture. So that's actually one of the really big ones, and it's something that I never considered before, and then I randomly had like a moment where I was like, you know, I should really have better posture. So that's one of the things that I really want to do. That's kind of a random one, but I feel like that's the one that I had never considered before, so that's like my most recent goal. If you've got a New Year's resolution or an intention that you're trying to set for yourself for 2021, I'm curious to hear them, so let me know in the comments. I always find it very inspiring to hear other people's goals because it makes me kind of think about my own and think about what is more important to me. And then also I like to add other people's resolutions to my resolutions because I just think you can always improve, and I think it's actually really fun to improve. So that's me. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.